Hi everyone, you're watching M4G Advocacy Media. This is the Journey Series video podcast, and I'm Mark, a brown man with black and white beard, a bald head, black glasses, a light blue shirt with blue, lime green, and mauve checks on it, I guess.
And I and I'm Crystal. Today I'm wearing a green blouse and I have my brown glasses and I have brown hair, brown eyes. My hair is in a ponytail and I'm a white one.
And today we're speaking with Richard Rieman, who's the Audiobook Wizard. And what he does is help produce audiobooks for people with disabilities. Hi, Richard.
Hi,
Hi, Crystal. Hi, Mark.
thank you
Hi.
for joining us.
Wonderful to be here.
Did I get your last name right? Is Riemann?
Absolutely. It's Riemann, which rhymes with demon, as I always say, and my mother used to say. But yeah, Richard Riemann, even though it's Rieman. So, of course, I get Ryman all the time. But I'm not Ryman, I'm Riemann.
So I had forgotten that you had recorded with Richard in the past.
Yeah, long.
And he was talking about how far you've come with this journey. So we were curious about how you got where you are and what led to it.
It's been an amazing journey. When I was little, I wanted to be Superman, but I couldn't fly. So I decided I was going to be Clark Kent instead and got into journalism. And that was my first career, was radio news. As you can probably tell, the radio voice. Stacks of wax and lots of tracks. No, not that kind of radio voice. But so I got into radio news in Chicago, WMAQ, WLS, Chicago News, and then went to the RKO Radio Network in New York and was for a while the Washington Bureau Chief in Washington, D.C. I'm going to date myself. It was during the Reagan administration. So, yes, I'm older than I look. Uh, the but I got a chance to travel with President Reagan and produce his Saturday morning radio addresses, and it was a very exciting time.
I
And then
bet.
after I left radio news, I was comfortable telling stories in front of a microphone. I mean, I've been telling stories, monster stories to my kids in different voices and everything when they were little. So I decided to get into audiobook narration. Well, that was a ton of fun because you get to play so many different kinds of characters. I did everything from a doctor who did lobotomies at carnivals, uh, a horror story, The Incurables, to some wonderful books. Auschwitz number 34207 about Joe Rubinstein, one of the survivors of Auschwitz, who became a New York dress designer, a famous New York dress designer, later moved to Colorado. So, these wonderful books. But I've always had something in my heart for children's books. And when I talked to my friends, and some of my friends, since I was a ski guide for blind skiers for several years, and also a volunteer for Learning Ally, reading books for the blind. So I had friends in the blind community, and I said, what audiobooks are wonderful, obviously, if you're not fully sighted or blind or have low vision. But what about children's illustrated books? I don't see many of those made into audiobooks. And they said, yeah, basically they just sound like long poems or you really can't follow it because if you can't see the pictures, it doesn't make as much sense. And I thought, what if we combined audio description, which was growing in movies and TV shows and live plays and everywhere else, with the narration of the audiobook. So that's why I got into first Imagination Storybooks, created a nonprofit to make illustrated books more accessible in audio. And we have co-narrators. One does the story, the other does the audio description, so their voices are distinguishable. And it became extremely popular. We also put together a podcast, and I'll tell you more about that later, with the Audiobook Wizard, me, and the so we and then we were asked by the National Association of the Deaf if we would do video versions of the books with American Sign Language, ASL, and Captions. And we ended up with a partnership with the Described and Captioned Media Program, DCMP.org, funded by the U.S. Department of Education and run by the National Association of the Deaf. And so we've been doing audio and video books. We're up to about 200 right now, and they are available free on our channel at dcmp.org to anyone who has any type of disability, whether it be blindness or deafness or neurodiverse. So they're available free to children, their parents, and their teachers. And we'll be showing some examples of these as we go along. But I really have to explain the Audiobook Wizard, the wizard, because I am a white man with gray hair and a gray beard, wearing a blue and white wizard hat with moons and stars on it, in front of a background of scattered books everywhere. It's a picture of how my mind feels all the time. It's just going from reading one to another. Well, when I first got into audiobooks, I had the opportunity to play a wizard in a couple of them, and also actually in a video game. So I had to come up with a wizard voice. So of course I went to Harry Potter and Ollivander's Wand Shop. Harry, so good to see you, Harry. I gave your parents their wands. And lifted the voice right from Ollivander. And so I became known as the Audiobook Wizard, published a book, The Author's Guide to Audiobook Creation, telling people how to, create audiobooks if they want to narrate them themselves or have someone narrate it for them. And that was a very successful book that I put out several years ago. So that's, basically I'm a kid who grew up in the suburbs, south suburbs of Chicago, da Bears. And so I was from a family of 10. So we didn't have a lot of money or anything. My mother had 3 sets of twins in a row. So that was
Wow.
amazing. So I was pushing a double stroller at age 10, but I learned very quickly, survivalist techniques, how to, how to stand out in a crowd, how to get some attention, and that has helped me in my professional career. And as I created the nonprofit Imagination Storybooks, which has actually merged into the Described and Captioned Media Program as of the first of the year. So now it's fully funded by the Department of Education. And then I created my own separate company, Illustrated Audiobooks, where I'm going to the authors of children's illustrated books and saying, let me create a money-making audiobook for you. We'll add audio description. We will put it up on Audible, have it on your Amazon book page. And this way you can reach an entirely new audience and make some money in royalties because now your kids can listen to your book everywhere. And if they listen to it, chances are they're going to want to buy it. If You Give a Mouse a Cookie is one of the books we did. So that reminds me of, if you give someone an audiobook, they may want to buy the regular book. So that's what I'm up to now.
Awesome. I remember If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. That was one of my favorite ones as a kid.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
were several, but which one was your favorite?
As a kid, I don't remember the title. I remember though, and I don't know if it was a popular thing, but it was a story about this dog, this big dog that,
Clifford?
no, it wasn't
No.
Clifford.
Wasn't Clifford,
No,
the big
it
red dog.
wasn't red. It was a big brown dog, and he was hatched from an egg. He was rather unusual, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't remember much of the story, but I remember the cover of it, and it's probably still in my room in my parents' house, all tattered and torn. It was like I really enjoyed that book.
Yeah.
So that was
Well,
probably my favorite.
yeah. And I just being surrounded by kids' books and working with some of the top narrators in the country now, who have volunteered their services to be the voices of and narrators of some of our books. So that's been wonderful. And, we'll play a little bit of Winnie the Pooh later. We did the accessible version of Winnie the Pooh with an all-star cast. And we have a lot of fun stuff coming up this year, too.
Yeah, I'm especially excited. I have it. So we were trying to actually create an account to just look at several different of our favorite books, but also just in general your work, right? And we couldn't get it to work.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Later.
We'll talk about it
Well-
later, but I think it was in the way we signed up. It didn't allow
Okay.
us to use some stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we'll fix that.
I'm
We'll get you on board.
especially excited to talk to you about some of the Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, it's what I find every time that I talk to a group is that when I talk about audio description, I don't really understand. So you do captions. No, we actually describe the illustrations themselves very richly. We follow some rules. We don't attach emotions to pictures. We don't say, Susan looks sad. We'll say Susan looks down, her eyes down toward the ground with a frown. So you make your own decision on whether that's sad. And so there are some rules, but the rule we get to break, which is the fun part when you're doing these books, is that we don't have the time constraints that most audio description has, where you're trying to fit it in between the dialogue and just really not interrupt too much. And this way we have the freedom to describe things richly. And as soon as you want, I'll show you a sample because people just don't. It's easier to hear and see than it is to describe. Okay. Well, I will. Let's see if we can get this ready. Get my screen set up, and this one I call before and after accessibility. I have to do this, share screen, share sound. And this is before and after. Here's an example of before. One page taken from If I Were Your Angel, narrated by Michelle Moross, as a simple read-along.
If I were your angel, I'd use my harp to strum you notes both flat and sharp. Fill your ears with joyful song so you can clap and sing along.
Now here's the after. We add audio description of the pictures for blind children, captions, and simultaneous American Sign Language interpretation for deaf children. The after is a different experience.
If I were your angel, I'd use my harp to strum you notes both flat and sharp. Fill your ears with joyful song so you can clap and sing along.
Birds soar above pink-tinged clouds. Music staffs with notes on them float like ribbons in the sky. Seated on a fluffy cloud, a girl reaches out to a bird as it flies past through the blue expanse, chasing a stray note. So that is what we do to make books accessible. It's, you mentioned if you give a mouse a cookie, okay. Well, we took If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, and as a nonprofit, we are able to make any book accessible, accessible versions of them, as long as we don't sell them. So, we have that right under U.S. copyright law, and that is something that we did for Laura Numeroff's book. And this will just show you, we also add captions. I'll play this for you.
Imagination Storybooks presents If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, written by Laura Joffe Numeroff, narrated by Scott Carroll, audio description narrated by Liz Gutman, and written by Dakota Green, from illustrations by Felicia Bond.
On the cover, on a green background, a mouse in overalls holds its hands aloft, its eyes closed, and wearing a wide, open-mouthed smile.
If you give a mouse a cookie.
A mouse in overalls strolls down a grassy hill with a bag over its shoulder. Flowers dot a bush behind the mouse. A brown-haired boy lounges on a rock on a lawn. He wears an orange shirt, jeans, and red high-top shoes. He eats a cookie from a packet and reads a comic book. Below, a title reads, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, written by Laura Joffe Numeroff, illustrated by Felicia Bond.
If you give a mouse a cookie.
The boy on the rock sits up and holds out a cookie with a smile. A blue house with a yellow door stands behind him. Shrubs, flowers, and small trees grow by a fence around the house.
He's going to ask for a glass of milk.
The boy opens the yellow door. The mouse in overalls trots up the walkway toward the house with a cookie in his paw.
When you give him the milk.
In a kitchen, the boy sits at a counter, an open milk jug beside him. The mouse perches on a jar and peers into a glass of milk in the boy's hand. The mouse's small bag rests on the table. A fridge stands slightly ajar behind the boy. A notepad and a news clipping hang on it. A blender and various foodstuffs rest on top. The packet of cookies sits on the counter beside a toaster.
The amazing thing, as I interrupt, you see and hear a lot more from these pictures than you do when you're just reading the book. There are things you just don't notice. Even the authors of the books have told us, I didn't realize that was there. I never paid attention to what was in the background, and you just, brought me into the story a little bit more by describing everything that's in the illustrations, and the richer the illustration, the better the descriptions that go. Should I continue with this, or show you another sample?
No, sure. You can show us in whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
would want to comment on this though.
Yes.
So to me, give a mouse a cookie is very much like if you include everybody and give them a cookie or a portion of the cookie, then you yourself, as like you were saying, the author who may or may not have a disability or different disability sees things they did not see before. And imagine what it must be like for, and I do have to say, some people find it annoying, or it takes too much of their time or whatever to stop and listen to the narration or descriptions and whatnot. But imagine being in a world where somebody can't see, and that's the way they experience the world, so it helps everybody.
It really does. And we are building a ramp to illustrated books for blind and deaf and neurodiverse children, because what we've discovered is that when it's presented this way, it is much easier for some children with challenges to follow than it is an animation, for instance, or a cartoon, because, it's explained. We have everything in front of you, and we describe the picture, and then the next picture comes up, and the next picture comes up. So, people with different kinds of challenges are also able to enjoy these books. And when I say build a ramp, for the audiobooks we create and put up on Audible and other audiobook websites, those are for everybody. Now all children can hear an illustrated book on their phone, in the car, on whatever device, Echo device or whatever they might have at home, on their computers. Now they can experience an illustrated book that way. So it's, and the side benefit is that it's also wonderful for those who may be visually challenged.
Do you mind turning off screen sharing first?
Sure.
Just when you're
When I'm talking, okay.
Yeah.
Because
So not only us, but our audience that needs to visually be able to see what you're, and also for people that need to read your lips.
Okay. Yeah.
too. We,
Gotcha.
so we want to see the rest of what you want to show. but we want to be able to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I
I'm
understand.
thinking of people when I go to edit, I'm thinking of people trying to listen and seeing this still image on the screen and not being able to connect what's going on.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I'll be careful about that as I show more examples.
And then also it's difficult to differentiate, like when you're narrating the book and then when you're actually talking to me in person. I can't tell.
Yeah, I know.
I'm seeing the little box.
Yeah. Well, I don't narrate them all, so it's not always me, but I understand.
Thank you.
There was one thought that crossed my mind when Crystal was talking and talking with you, and you were talking about accessibility issues. There may be people that I can hear this as a possible conversation that, well, it's not like it was 40, 50 years ago we're not like locking people with disabilities away in some institution somewhere where nobody sees them. Why do we need to take these extra steps? And I think that these extra little steps, although we're not physically locking people away and putting them in isolation, we're doing it in ways that, in other ways that we don't necessarily understand, but it feels that way to them.
Mhm. Well, a critical thing that is happening in the world is the National Federation of the Blind says that 90% of blind children are not learning Braille anymore. They're being mainstreamed into schools. They are totally dependent upon audio and the audio help they get. So we need to make sure they have access to these illustrated books in audio. And also, for those who do know Braille or are learning Braille, we offer a downloadable Braille file version with each of our videos. So the parents can even print it out, print the book with audio description out at home if they'd like, or just have it read on their Braille readers. So we're trying to make sure that people realize that this is not just a nice thing to do, it's a need for the
Right.
community.
And not only that, but society is advanced enough that there's no reason to exclude anyone.
Right.
You know, technology wise, we have everything right now. There's no more excuses to be had.
Yeah, really, really not. And the technology, of course, we have to get into the technology too with AI. Everybody is talking about that. And yes, they are using AI to write and record audio description. But with children's books, no, thank you. We need human voices. Children need voices they can relate to. The audio description needs to be written very well, very clearly, so that children, 5 or 10 years old can understand it. So it's one of those areas that, the human touch is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
In the audio.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's especially important now when I don't know if there'll ever come a time for AI to understand this, but we understand context. Well, some of us anyways,
Yeah.
understand. I'll exclude myself from this. But human beings generally understand and are able to interpret context much better than the machine can. Like if we just go by the AI and we pick word like pray or a word like through, right? Those can be spelled multiple different ways and mean different things depending on what sentence they're in and
Right.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
are able to put it, emphasis on what we're trying to say and making it identifiable by the way we speak. AI is not really good at doing that yet.
Yeah.
No. So let me continue with a sample now. We're going to go to Spotify, and basically I created a channel, Illustrated Audiobooks, with the Audiobook Wizard, and we need to update. We have about 50 books on there at the moment. So it's free because we had sponsors, pay us to put these up on this podcast. And, we specialize in books that, feature children with differences and disabilities many, many times. Besides, like the brave little crab has a missing claw. And, of course, we try to do Winnie the Pooh and other popular books, but it just, these are all free on Spotify. It's just called Illustrated Audiobooks with the Audiobook Wizard. And yeah, let me play a sample here. The Audiobook Wizard presents Illustrated Audiobooks, wonderful children's illustrated books brought to audio life by including rich audio description of the pictures for children who are blind, low vision, and all children.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
Whatever platform they want to go to, and it's inclusive everywhere. I love that. Thank you for doing that for so many kids.
yeah, it's so much fun. Of course, there's me and my wizard voice doing the introductions, but
But
now they can, listen to the books anytime they'd like. And, it's just a way of reaching so many more people. The Library of Congress heard about what we were doing, and they decided to pay us for 100 of our accessible audiobooks to put on the Bard players and the other devices they have as part of the.
Sorry, Richard, your audio cut out for a second there.
Okay.
As part of the,
So basically, as part of the Library of Congress, we are, putting our books up there for everyone to hear on the blind audio reading devices. And so, appealing to the community in that way also. So we've gotten that kind of recognition. The challenge has been, Crystal and Mark, that the major audiobook publishers and publishers have not yet committed to making their books accessible. There is a cost. It's not, we're talking hundreds of dollars, not a lot, but they just don't feel yet that there is enough of a marketplace out there where they could make a profit by adding audio description to their audiobooks. And they tell us, oh, but we're so happy that you're doing it. Well, thanks, but I don't mean to do it for you. I'm trying to do it with you and show you how you can do this. And so we've gotten, some ways, like Laura Numeroff, the author of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, she got on Facebook, on one of our illustrated book, children's illustrated book Facebook sites, and didn't know she was part of the group, but she just responded, OMG, this is wonderful that you've made my book accessible. And so, she's going back to her publisher saying, why can't we do this with, all my books? It's just, so we are showing that especially the audiobook versions, because as I said, authors can sell them on Audible and make about $2, per download of the audiobook. They can actually sell the audiobook versions of their books, and the audiobook version will be right next to their paperback and hardcover and Kindle versions on their Amazon webpage. So this is just a great way for them to expand their audiences and show that there is a public interest. Winnie the Pooh is the top-selling, our accessible Winnie the Pooh is the top-selling audiobook version of Winnie the Pooh right now. We're number one. We sell thousands of dollars of books. We've gotten thousands of dollars in royalties for the nonprofit from the book because, it adds something when all the pictures are described too, so that everybody can enjoy the audiobook version. So we're pushing hard. I'm on the DEI committees of both the Audio Publishers Association and the Independent Book Publishers Association to push from within the authors, the publishers to do more of this.
Oh, yeah, thank you for doing that. That's important work you're doing.
It is. And I'm wondering if I can maybe, if there's another aspect to this appealing to those companies that we can talk about. That is, part of the, I can see how maybe a company or people may say, okay, that's fine, do these whatever we need to do for accessibility, but keep it over there, right? Instead of making everything accessible in multiple ways for everyone. And the reason that one of the key reasons that pops into my mind is because whether it's children or adults, they don't always have that disability label. Maybe they're a kid who gets teased a lot in school and isn't compelled to advocate for themselves
Mm-hmm.
or even acknowledge that they have this disability and they're masking, right? But they would actually benefit from this. Maybe they're being raised in a household where they're discouraged from acknowledging their disability. Or maybe it's an adult who simply doesn't know that they have these challenges,
Right.
right?
And so many of our challenges are invisible. And like I myself, I have progressive glaucoma. And so I'm losing my own eyesight. Luckily, slowly, I've had 4 surgeries so far on my eyes, and they're good so far. I'm one of the lucky ones where the surgery has really helped a lot. But people don't know that I have a disability too, and it's just, there's so many of us out there who, I really didn't think about it until I became, I started to have a disability later in life. And many of us will face those challenges. So it's
Right.
not for somebody else, it's for us.
Right. And as we were talking about before this, that, we really appreciate what you're doing. And not only is it for the kids, but as you said, it's for us, for the allies and for the disability able-bodied community, whoever needs it.
Yes.
As we also talked about, we have resources on our website, well, of course, we're gonna add you on there, and that's other people that have never been given voices before are going to need contacts so that they can build more systems, right?
Yep, exactly right.
And
Mhm.
they're not going to know what direction to go in. And so we try to have as many people in different areas, in the disability community, allies and all that, so that we can send that, that they can look at the website and go to those people,
Yes. And one of the wonderful things about audiobooks is that they're simple and accessible everywhere, no matter where you listen to audiobooks. Whereas it's a Tower of Babel when it comes to audio description for movies, TV shows. Some streaming companies will have audio description on this movie and not that movie, or season 1 of a TV series, but not season 2. And it's just, and there is no one standard. Audiobooks are a standard. And of course, audiobooks came originally into being because they were for blind soldiers coming back from World War I. So that's how audiobooks started. And this is just another step that we can take in the audiobook world, making them accessible. Let me take a moment and go just a short excerpt from Winnie the Pooh. And this is the audiobook version. So it's a little different because it's a book that doesn't have a lot of pictures. The audio description, we just weave it, I think, very well into the story. This is the part where Winnie the Pooh and friends are going out to look for the North Pole.
I don't hold with all this washing,
Grumbled Eeyore.
this modern behind-the-ears nonsense. What do you think, Pooh?
Well, I think...
But we shall never know what Pooh thought, for there came a sudden squeak from Roo, a splash, and a loud cry of alarm from Kanga.
So much for washing.
Roo's fallen in,
Cried Rabbit, and he and Christopher Robin came rushing down to the rescue.
Look at me swimming.
Squeaked Roo from the middle of his pool, and was hurried down a waterfall into the next pool.
Little Roo splashes in a stream, lifting its head and paws out of the water. Kanga hurries along a grassy bank behind him, while Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Christopher Robin, and the others follow close behind.
Are you all right, Roo dear?
Called Kanga anxiously.
Yes, look at me swim.
Said Roo, and down he went over the next waterfall into another pool. Everybody was doing something to help. Piglet, wide awake suddenly, was jumping up and down and making
"Ooh, I say!"
noises. Owl was explaining that in case of sudden and temporary immersion, the important thing was to keep the head above water. Kanga was jumping along the bank, saying,
Are you sure you're all right, Roo dear?
to which Roo, from whatever pool he was in at the moment, was answering,
Look at me swimming.
Eeyore had turned round and hung his tail over the first pool into which Roo fell, and with his back to the accident, was grumbling quietly to himself and saying,
All this washing. But catch on to my tail, little Roo, and you'll be all right.
And Christopher Robin and Rabbit came hurrying past Eeyore and were calling out to the others in front of them.
All right, Roo, I'm coming.
Called Christopher Robin.
Get something across the stream lower down, some of you fellows.
Called Rabbit. But Pooh was getting something. 2 pools below Roo, he was standing with a long pole in his paws, and Kanga came up and took one end of it, and between them they held it across the lower part of the pool.
Winnie the Pooh and Kanga stand on opposite sides of the stream and hold a long pole across the water between them, while the current carries Roo nearer.
And Roo, still bubbling proudly,
Look at me swimming.
drifted up against it and climbed out.
Did you see me swimming?
Squeaked Roo excitedly, while Kanga scolded him and rubbed him down.
Pooh, did you see me swimming? Christopher Robin, did you see me?
But Christopher Robin wasn't listening. He was looking at Pooh.
Pooh, where did you find that pole?
Pooh looked at the pole in his hands.
I just found it. I thought it ought to be useful. I just picked it up.
Pooh,
Said Christopher Robin solemnly.
The expedition is over. You have found the North Pole.
So that is, just how, and these are voice actors who are at the top of the profession. Winnie the Pooh was voiced by Johnny Heller, who has won every award in audiobook history and is one of the golden voices of the 20th century. And he couldn't wait to do his version of Winnie the Pooh. And Rue is his wife, actually, who's also Joanna Perrin, a voice actor. So, I mean, it was so much fun. Christopher Robin, that was my daughter, Erin, who is also a narrator. It's a family business. So yeah, we all pitched in to make Winnie the Pooh accessible.
It's so interesting to me. So I identify a lot with Winnie the Pooh, and especially Tigger.
Yes.
This ADHD kind of thing, the hyper and ability things going through your head at once. We talked about that a little bit.
Mhm.
But every character in Winnie the Pooh has a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
and they all work together to make, to get everybody's things done and help each other. Like in this case, across the river,
I know. Eeyore, obviously depressed. Oh dear. Oh my. And Tigger, what is the thing about Tigger? Tigger's a wonderful thing. So yes, the ADD, bouncing all over the place, ADHD, and I mean they all have their differences and challenges, and Winnie the Pooh keeps telling himself and everybody that he's stupid, that he's dumb. I mean, and it just, obviously he's not, but that's, and that's why we especially want stories that put children or creatures who have challenges, they don't have eyesight, they don't hear, into the stories so that children can relate to those characters.
But for me, I don't know if you do or watch with anyone who's done these books, but I was always drawn to also Amelia Bedelia. But it was interesting on a psychology level of this poor girl, she's being made fun of for all these things. And, of course, that is the way the world saw it. Was kind of funny and different. And she was not catching on to what things meant and not understanding. And, so it was interesting as time went on how people started identifying with that and appreciating more what it was like, and not to make fun of things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, one of the books that we are going forward with. Not only do we want books that feature children or animals with challenges, we also want to cast blind voice actors and use blind audio engineers. Our engineer, who played Rabbit in that clip, Tristan Snyder, who also does like the AD for The Good Doctor and other shows that are out there, he is a Pro Tools expert, and he does almost all of our audio editing. And been totally blind since birth, but just loves this project that we're doing. And this year we're putting together the accessible, wonderful Wizard of Oz. We are going to have an entirely blind and low vision cast of voice actors, and including our Dorothy is the woman who starred in All the Light We Cannot See, the Netflix series. Aria Mia Loberti. She is our Dorothy. The man who played the blind alien on Star Trek Strange New Worlds is our Scarecrow. So everyone in the cast has some sort of, visual impairment or disability, and so it's going to be very, 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 very unique. And of course, all the pictures will be described. This is the original Frank Baum book that we're putting together, and that will be out probably in about 2 to 3 months, I think, is what we're looking at it right now. So yeah, it's something that we really are excited about, and I'm having trouble on my screen now, of course, just getting back to where I need to be to share. Let me see if I can get this done.
No, I was just thinking back to Winnie the Pooh. I remember us talking before about Winnie the Pooh's sort of Canadian connection there. And he was created by a dad that was, he was visiting Winnipeg in Canada, and he had seen a soldier who was, I guess, had a pet bear, or he had a bear with him.
Right.
And because they were in Winnipeg, his character got the name Winnie, and yeah, that sort of had that one.
Yeah.
And then they ended up visiting the bear in the London Zoo or something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely has Canadian roots, Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, that's for sure.
I specifically remember that episode. I forgot about it, and I was so excited. I was like, "That's right, you did." with Richard. And I remember you talking about that Canadian connection, and then Winnie the Pooh, and finding out about where that name's from and stuff like that.
It's so much fun, and what I'm showing next is going to be Imagination Storybooks by DCMP, and I think the trouble you had logging in is that because it's funded by the U.S. Department of Education, sometimes they don't let Canadians register.
At no point did they ask us for address or anything.
Yeah, we put it Texas.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I will get you access, and
we did.
really,
Signed up under Employee Advocacy Media, so not our names.
Well, we'll take care of that, because I want to share the screen again and show you that this is Imagination Storybooks by DCMP, our website at dcmp.org, and you can see where the number of books we have. There's 8 pages worth of these. Alexander the Avoider, who has sensory processing disorder, and the Black Lives Matter, Brave Little Crab, as we talked about. This is a wonderful book, The ABCs of Inclusion. Just click on this, because it is, I guess I need to log in. It really is the way that, come on. Yeah, well, let me log in. That figures. It features 26 different children with different disabilities, and that's they have a copy of the children's book, a downloadable copy, and when you play it, when you're able to play it, you can really see the features that they have there. I'm going to see if I can log in over here. I don't know why it's not working, but yeah, maybe they kicked me out too. So, but that's free, and if people have trouble accessing it, let me know, because I will make sure that that's changed. As I mentioned, most of the videos have downloadable Braille files. Captions you can turn on and off. The ASL, the sign language, you can turn on and off. It's just a great experience, and it's much more than just my children's illustrated books. It's a site for kids all the way up to high school to have information for them that is accessible. It's just a wonderful organization.
This may be an ignorant question, but how do you get how does downloadable Braille files work? I thought Braille was like a physical thing you have to.
Well, it's a text file that when you print it out on your Braille printer, that's the key. It prints it out in Braille. And also, if you have the file read on your Braille reader, basically it will, give you the artificial voice version, but you will hear, the product with the audio description and the story. So it's, we want to make sure we're appealing to as many people as possible. One of the ways that AI will help is by taking our books and, interpreting them into foreign languages. Because even, there's a smaller community of Spanish-speaking blind people and deaf people, and these books should be available to them also. What we're finding, though, is that, we almost are going to have to use the AI voices, which, blind people are used to. They grow up listening to text to speech, and, sometimes at 3 times or 5 times speed as they rip through things. But, obviously for illustrated books, the preference is human voices. So, but we plan to, as part of the project we're working on, to make sure that we can get these books into as many foreign languages as possible.
If we can we go back to the Braille printers?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that can considerably cost, what is the best route to obtain something like that if we need it?
Yeah. We work with a company called GetBraille.com. And GetBraille.com is run by Tanya, who is one of our, she's a narrator too, and Tanya Milojevic. And she, so you go to GetBraille.com, and they can print out versions. They can give you Braille files of anything, like a Word document. They do restaurant menus. They do anything that you want to put into Braille, including books. But books, as you said, are expensive to make into Braille. I mean, it just is one of those processes that is almost prohibitive to do individually. It's fine to do a book for a library or something, but as far as being able to sell Braille copies individually, it's very expensive. So by printing out from the Braille file, of course, we are, putting the cost of the paper and everything on the consumer, on the parent usually, who's printing out the Braille files. But we want to make sure that everybody will have access as much as possible to those things. And so if any authors are in the audience and want to create a Braille version of their book or a Braille file to go along with their book, getbraille.com is a good place to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other questions?
So I'm scared. So what is your next project?
Okay, yeah. Well, The Wizard of Oz is one of them. I have written a book myself, my first children's illustrated book that I have written, called The Day the Clouds Went Away. And this is about basically a parent, a princess who is having her 8th birthday come up. Well, this princess is very low vision, and although she hasn't seen a lot of clouds, she's worried that it may rain her birthday party out. So she orders her wizard, Fumbledore, to make all the clouds go away. Well, he's not a very good wizard, so some of the clouds come back and explain how important they are. Cyrus the McCirrus cloud, who has an Irish accent for some reason. He comes back and he tells her, "Oh, we're very important. Not only do you need the rain, but if you don't have clouds, you don't have shade. You're going to burn." And so the princess learns along the way how important clouds are, the different kinds of clouds. And she has a guide owl named Iris, because owls make great guides. They've got excellent hearing. Their beaks are sensitive to objects, and they flap so you can follow them. So it's like, the guide owls. There should be more of those. So that's my book, The Day the Clouds Went Away, and that is coming out. It's on Amazon right now in paperback. It's coming out on Amazon in hardcover next week, and it's already gotten 2 awards, even just as it's coming out. One of them being the Golden Wizard Award, which of course I had to enter that competition, but it also got a BookFest Best Fantasy Children's Book of 2024 award. So I'm very proud of that. And it's a series, and the next one is The Day the Bees Went Away. So we'll have the adventure of how important bees are to the princessdom. It's not a kingdom; it's a princessdom run by this princess who happens to be blind. It's not the main part of the story. She is in charge of the princessdom. She's telling, her wizard what to do and all of that. Very independent. And, that's why it's important to me to have, characters in the stories who may have differences, but, it's normal. So that's one of the things I'm working on.
And it's very important for us to, in the work we do, to normalize things, because and the way the world has gone, people have been isolated so much, and it's led us down a road which we're trying to recover from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as a society, in the as a whole, but we are specifically in the disability a part of it. We have seen, we are able to recognize that what happened in the past and how we've been teaching children and giving them opportunities to understand and hear and see whatever they need, to get the same information and have the same equality, as everyone else, to be able to share their ideas with the world, because they have the same information and they're not being shielded, and they're not stuck somewhere because they don't have the information and they don't feel like they can contribute. So that's important when somebody can recognize that and then be able to advance society and say that didn't work, let's go forward, let's make it better for us and future generations.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and you talked about the character on Strange New Worlds, who's helping you with some voice work. And
Bruce Horak from Canada, yes.
Right.
Canadian.
His character, although he is blind, has a lot of is very intelligent, has a lot to contribute, and that doesn't, it just adds to the narrative or some of the story, and it has heightened abilities in other areas.
Yeah. Well, it's, I'm just really hoping that differences become more normalized, because even the word disability, I know, is controversial, just like handicapped used to be. It's, we're trying to come up with better words to describe people with differences and challenges.
Yeah.
It's just being different. It's not necessarily being disabled and unable to do things. It's just, so there's, I hope we can change even the language.
Yeah, eventually it will come to that point, but we feel it's really not necessary. I mean, in the sense that there are a lot of bigger things that we need to worry about.
Yes, than what word is used, yes.
Actually making the world more accessible would be nice. And then maybe when we have checked off a bunch of the major stuff, then we can,
right, inclusion.
Right, then we can worry about the words and things like that.
Yeah, we try to focus on helping people get there, and not being so focused on worrying about what people, because the generations they came from, that's what they knew. That was their experience of what they were taught. That's ingrained in their head. They're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna say the wrong thing. They're having to learn new stuff, and some people aren't there yet. So if we can first get past the hurdle of just including people and being kind and not being ableist, then let's steer toward that first.
I think it's okay if you're, I mean, obviously we're speaking to someone who's offended or hurt by certain words, and by all means don't use them.
Respect it.
Respect their whatever they need, but we personally don't feel that it's necessary to change language.
We're tired of hearing the fights and all the things that people in the disability community and outside of the disability telling us what we need to call ourselves and what we shouldn't be doing and stuff like that.
Also, it's we're trying to get people who need to make necessary changes. We want them to be open and flexible. The more we tell them and nitpick about what you can't do and all these little things, they're gonna shut down and just
Right.
said heck with
Yeah,
all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot, to take in, and a lot of demands, if you will,
Mhm.
on what you should be doing and what you should be calling us, and it's just overwhelming. And like you were saying, people are just gonna start shutting down. So let's break it down and only do those.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, I'm trying to do my part and to make, the illustrated book world accessible. And one other new thing I'm doing is I am putting together a couple of courses on how to make your illustrated book accessible for authors. In other words, it explains audio description and audio editing and narrating and all that. And there'll be a do-it-yourself toolbox toolkit course that I'm putting together. And then there'll be the done for you version where everything, you just have the PDF of your book and we take it from there and create the audiobook version for you and all of that. Because it doesn't exist right now. So we want children's illustrated book authors to say, oh yeah, especially if I can make money, sure, let me make my book accessible.
Well, we're certainly grateful for all that you're doing, Richard.
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
it's so awesome to talk to people that are finding ways and doing what they can to make things more inclusive. So,
yeah, and I love what I do. When I go to the local Anchor Center for the Blind here in Denver and the children there and, show up as the wizard, it's always so much fun to play the videos for them and, because not all of them are totally blind, most have some sight. So they like the videos or what they can see, especially since it's being described. So it makes it better for them. And it's just, something that we have to normalize, that illustrated books are accessible to all.
anything else?
No.
So how can people contact you or your companies?
Okay. Well, we are in the midst of a redesign of my website, but it is theaudiobookwizard.com. And that will show you, the links to the podcast, the links to the illustrated audiobooks on the Described and Captioned Media program, links to my books, things like that. So it's theaudiobookwizard.com. That's the website. My email is simply richard@illustratedaudiobooks.com, because I really like the term illustrated audiobooks. So we've trademarked that. richard@illustratedaudiobooks.com. And especially interested in finding more books out there dealing with children with challenges, or in many cases it's a crab with one leg, or a hippopotamus who's blind or something, because it's kids' books. But we want to make as many of those books as accessible as possible as we can.
And I know you're on LinkedIn. Are you on other platforms as well?
Mainly Facebook and LinkedIn. Facebook, you can find me at Imagination Storybooks on Facebook. Facebook.com/Imagination Storybooks is the business site. And on LinkedIn, it's simply R. Rieman, RRIEMAN, on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you for speaking with us today, Richard.
Crystal, Mark, it's a pleasure.
It was. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Hey,
Bye.
bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this episode. Remember to encourage, educate, and empower someone today. Bye.
Bye.